Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and welcome to the broadcast. Tonight, we're going to be talking about nonviolent communication of different sorts. So, I wanted to say hi to Isabel and to Angela. I see they're both here already, so that's wonderful. Um, for those of you who may be watching for the first time, welcome. And if you choose just to watch and not actually join in, that is absolutely fine. We call that ghosting, and we're more than happy that you do that. We've had people who've ghosted for the longest time without actually participating. I think, Angela, you were one of them. I always try and tell people your story that you watched, I think, for 3 months without ever saying a thing. We had somebody the other day who came in and said they've been watching for 3 years without ever saying a thing. So this is what it's all about. Ange, do you want to talk about whatever this is, just on while I'm doing the intro here? If not, that's fine. Write to me and let me know so I know how to support you. Um, all right, so tonight we're going to be talking about nonviolent communication. And I thought I'd start off by saying, hi, Jody. I thought I'd start off by talking about the fact that there have been some pretty famous nonviolent protests. And I wonder if any of you can think of any hi, Nana, where we had nonviolent protests. It's really interesting to have a look at how effective some have been, and some of them were non-violent, but they took a while to make change. But non-violent protests have been around for a long time and have been very effective in a lot of cases. So do any of you, and easy for me to say, I wonder if any of you can think of any non-violent protests that have been happening either in the past or in the near future. There've been quite a few. Hi, Jamie. Good to see you as well, and Nana. So I was thinking way back, perhaps the most well known in some way. Yes, the Women's March. There's a good one. That was a non-violent protest. A lot of women came out. The Million Men March or something was one. I'm going back to Gandhi because I think Gandhi was a very well-known protester, but he did so in a very non-violent way. He didn't protest with anger. He protested with silence almost. And so I wanted to talk a bit about Gandhi tonight, amongst other things. But I was trying to think of some of the other better known ones as well. By the way, do you know what Gandhi protested against? Let's see how good your history is. How many of you, while we're waiting for the answer of that, perhaps some of you can remember Tiananmen Square, where this one man stood up against tanks. And it was an incredible picture to see. That he literally just stood in the way of a tank. Didn't have a gun or try and protect himself, but just felt strongly enough about what was going on that he stood in front of a tank. How many of you know the story of Rosa Parks? She decided not to be violent about her beliefs that everybody should be equal. She just sat in a place that was reserved for whites only. And that was her nonviolent protest. She just decided to do what she thought was right. Hi, Kerry, welcome. So, I can remember in my lifetime the coup in the Philippines. Hi, Manja, good to see you. And the Filipino people came out with flowers against the military. Literally came out with flowers and stood up against the military, not with guns or attacking them or anything, but by giving them flowers. And one of the most incredible things was that I can always remember June Keithley when I was in the Philippines, and I got a chance to meet her. She was a very famous journalist, and maybe still is, I'm not sure. But she was a very famous journalist there. And she said she still had memories of her way of protesting was to continue to broadcast when she'd been told not to. That was her way of protesting. And she literally was in a building where a tank turned its gun to the window where she was actually in the room broadcasting. She could actually see the end of the gun on the tank. And she heard the commander of the tank being told to fire. She said she actually heard that instruction. And she knew she was about to die, but she carried on broadcasting anyway. And she said the most incredible thing was she then heard the tank commander say, "I've got a malfunction, I cannot fire." But the truth was he didn't fire because he didn't see her as a threat. And I always thought that was an incredible story. Some of you will remember recently there was a young Catholic student who stood up to, he says now, to protect a Native Indian elder in a difficult situation. And he literally just stood in front of him smiling to show that he meant no ill. But stopped him from walking into what would have been a dangerous situation for him. And so there have been lots of examples where people have done things in a non-violent way. And some worked and some didn't. And it's interesting that none of you know why Gandhi protested. So for those of you who are interested, I'm sure you'll look it up, but it had to do with the salt tax, like salt that you put on your food. The Brits had basically taken over the right to mine salt in India. And Gandhi thought that was really wrong that they had the monopoly on it, that it belonged to the Indian people, not to the Brits. And that is what he protested about. Now, his protest didn't actually cause the overthrow of the Brits, but it was a stepping stone in overthrowing the Brits. That the Brits handed back independence to the Indian people. So, it probably took a couple of decades for it to happen, but without a doubt, Gandhi was part of the reason why it started and gave fuel to it. So basically, some of you will have heard maybe about nonviolent communication. Have any of you heard that expression? There is a whole course that you can do on it, which is really interesting to study if you want to. And for those of you who have pretty hot tempers, it's not a bad idea to have a look at it. And I think there's some free stuff on YouTube on it as well, just called nonviolent communication. The basis of it, and I thought I would just give you what the basis of it is. It is a structure, and the structure is really quite simple. It says you start by observing, then you talk about your feeling, then you talk about your needs, and then you talk about requests. Now, the interesting thing about nonviolent communication is that quite often when you just start with your observation, if you say to somebody, let me try and give an example of that. Jody, Jody, let's take your example from lunchtime. By the way, for those of you who weren't at the lunchtime broadcast, we did a really interesting broadcast at lunchtime about rude people and how to deal with them. And hang on a second, I just want to get this cardigan off. And Jody gave an example where she had been going to an X-ray, and Lionel was pushing her into the X-ray room, and the nurse, in quite a sort of snippy attitude, said, "What are you going to do when he's not around?" Sort of attitude, which hurt Jody terribly, and she was lost for words, but she felt the pain of what the nurse said. And so at lunchtime today, we were giving Jody some possible words that she could say. How many of you have found that the frustration is, you ought to be saying something, but you don't know what to say, so you end up not saying anything, but it hurts inside and you get really angry inside? Do any of you relate to that? Now, some of you get so frustrated that you probably don't say anything, but you start to cry. And that's because your frustration level is so high. So one of the things that nonviolent communication talks about is, start by the observation. For example, Jody, if I may use your example, um, you know, you could say, I hear you say that you're wondering what I'm going to do when Lionel's not around. Now, the trick is to take a deep breath after the observation, because in a lot of cases, the fact that you address it head on, you will find that they answer you almost immediately. You won't need to go through the other bits. They will come back to you almost immediately. Um, yeah, Jude, but the interesting thing is, Isabel, we taught Jody at lunchtime some things that she could have said. And that was the point. That's the reason I wanted to do that broadcast at lunchtime today, was because I think for so many people, they just don't know what to say. And because they don't know what to say, they get frustrated and twice as angry, because they know what they'd like to say, but they're too polite to say it. So they end up not saying anything. So Jody, does that make sense? If you start with your observation, I see you do X, Y, and Z, or I hear you say A, B, and C. For example, you might be sitting in front of somebody and they are obviously frustrated. You know what I mean? They're not concentrating on you because they're busy. I had it happen once where somebody just couldn't be bothered to look at me when I went in for a meeting. They just carried on doing their paperwork or whatever it was they were doing, and I thought that was incredibly rude. So I didn't know what to say. I do now, but I didn't know what to say. So what I did was I actually took action, and I just literally closed my briefcase and started to walk out of the office. And the guy suddenly said to me, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, well, obviously you're too busy for this meeting because you haven't given me any eye contact at all since I came through the door. So I thought I better leave and come back another day. And I remember him saying to me, you got balls, lady. And I said, yep. He said, come on, sit down. Yes, Angela, Angela, it's really important for you to understand why you cry. It's out of frustration. Yeah, Jody was saying, I was just so completely taken aback, I was speechless, and now I have a plan on how to be able to deal with it. All right, so the thing is, can you see that it's okay to observe, to tell them that you heard what they said? You can start with that. I heard you say that you're wondering what I'm going to do without Lionel. And look confused with that. But what I said to Jody at lunchtime was, a little bit more than that, because the next part of the process is it's okay for you to give your feelings. So Jody could have continued that conversation by saying, I feel incredibly hurt that you would ask me that, in as much as that is a really painful thing for me to think about. And I just need to know, because the next part of the process is the need. Hi, Mary. The next part is your needs. I need to know whether you were asking me that in terms of being really thoughtful and finding out whether we've made a plan or not, or whether you have said it out of frustration for some reason. You see, you can tell them that you need them to explain whether they wanted to be catty or whether they wanted to be nice. And then your request is, you can actually say to them, uh, if you would like to discuss this, I feel it's pretty personal. Um, the plans that Lionel and I have made, but if that's really what you want to know, I could come back and have a discussion with you about that. But basically, what you're saying is you were rude, but you don't actually say it. You actually show them how rude they were just by your reactions. Does that make sense, Jody? So, number one, it's okay to tell them what you saw. In other words, I could say to that guy that I was in the meeting with, um, which I did when he asked me why I was going. I noticed that you didn't have time to even look me in the eyes, which makes me realize you don't have time for this meeting. Because if you had time for it, I presume you would have been polite enough to actually look me in the eyes. And it worked really well. Yes, now, one of the things, and we were talking about that, Beth, that one of the coping mechanisms, and I gave I think I gave about 6 ways of dealing with a rude person. And Beth, one of them was with humor. All right? Yes, and Beth is saying that she would immediately laughed and said, "Aren't you glad I'm here so you have a job?" Yeah, right, which is she would turn it back on them, but nicely. So humor is one way of dealing with it. But the humor, when it's said that way, Beth, can be seen as snippy as their comment to you, right? It can be seen as sarcastic. So be careful of the humor bit, because it can actually inflame as well. And what we're talking about today is how to do it in a non-violent way. I actually would deal with it with humor as well, Beth. I think I said to Jody, I probably would have said, all right, you have to say that a different way, Beth, because that's not making sense to me. Ah, all right. So Beth's saying she only says the truth. Yeah, which is the truth for you. And that is what I said to Jody, which is perfectly okay for her to tell her truth, which is, ouch, and quite honestly, that hurt me more than a little bit. Um, you know, because that's the truth. But I hear that you're interested as to whether, you know, Lila and I have made plans. Well, the truth is that that isn't really what she was trying to say. So if you just say, "That's what I hear you saying," um, it's like talking to a child, right? If you talk to a child and you don't know what's really going on, you tell something that you think is totally wrong because most children will correct you and tell you what the truth was. So that is one of the ways that you can do it in a non-violent way. I hear you say that you're interested to know whether Lion and I have made a plan. And quite honestly, the feeling that I get is pretty sore because that's something I really don't like to think of very often. But the truth is, yes, we have talked about it. We have plans. All right. So Beth's saying that she had a customer today who cussed her out about some things. And saying that some of the things she was buying were too expensive. Yeah, what was your reply, Beth? So in terms of nonviolent communication, and by the way, Beth, I find that I don't know why, you'll forgive me, but I find that somewhat amusing at a Dollar General store, right? you know, which is not known for having very expensive prices. Yeah, Angela's had that happen, but she's not working at the why can't I say that? Dollar General. Um, so I would say, by the way, Angela, the thing that you were talking about, was it work related? I've just remembered now in my brain some information on your work situation. So if somebody says, I used to have it a lot when I was speaking, where somebody would say, "How much do you charge?" And I tell them, and they go, "Wow, that's way too expensive for me." And I'd say, Okay, I can hear that you say that that's too expensive. As a matter of interest, what sort of price range were you trying to work on? And they would tell me, and I say, hey, I can do half as much if you like, if that's what the price range is. I just won't talk for as long or whatever. I'd find a way around it. Yes. So yes, and Kerry's saying that she also got cussed out more than once when she worked at the Dollar General. And Beth saying, that Beth offered to help her find something more suited to her price range. But the truth is, most people just are transferring their confusion onto you. The obvious answer is to say, I hear you, and that's important, that you hear the person. I hear you say that you think this is too expensive. I feel really sad that I don't get to do the pricing here because, if I did, I probably would want to be able to price this a lot less for you. But it's, I just have to go with what the instructions are. So I'm really sorry. Can I help you find something, as Beth did? Can I help you find something more within your range? And the interesting thing is, you will normally find these people who are venting at you. If you could look back in their day, something else has normally happened to them. And the fact that this thing was too expensive was just one more brick in their wall of anger. And I'm certain you've been there as well, where you reacted to something because you were already emotionally charged, and then something else happens, and boom, now you get snippy with it. And if you're a human being, you've been there. And so the interesting thing is when you deal with it without violence, which is, well, I can hear how frustrating that is for you. Can I help you? By the way, Beth, when you said, can I help you find something less expensive? Um, you said she was too entangled to stop and let me help her. Yes, suddenly they're too busy to do that. And by the way, did she buy the product anyway? Yes, I agree with you, Beth. Beth saying, I think she needed to get angry at anyone in her path. Little does she know what I've been through, and I felt empathy for her. Exactly. And so, if you can see it that way, do you understand, Beth? That's the whole thing we were talking about at lunchtime. You remember the Obamas said, when they get low, we go higher. You see, when you have emotional intelligence, you are able to not react to the insults that are coming at you. It's not about you. When I get angry, if I get to that point where something really is beginning to upset me, I will actually start with the words, I know you don't have control of this, but I have a need to vent right now. Have any of you ever done that? I have to tell you, I think this is way too expensive, and I want you to know I know that's out of your control. So I'm not angry at you. Um, this is me having a snit. Angela, is it okay for me to talk about that publicly because this goes out on the replay? Let me know, honey. So I was thinking as well, at lunchtime today, for example, Lauren came in with a comment, which was when she was a child, her father used to call her pumpkin. And she felt very hurt by that and, thought that was incredibly rude. And then used that as an excuse to eat more and really self-sabotage in some ways. And I'm certain a lot of you can understand her point of view. However, what I said was that I know a lot of people who call people pumpkin as a term of endearment, has nothing to do with their weight. And so much of these things that hurt us, um, are the way that we choose to take it. And it is a choice. And that was what the whole discussion was about at lunchtime today, which is we choose how to hear these things. We can either hear them and take them in and get angry, or we can just hear them and go, well, that isn't and think to ourselves, that isn't the truth. Angela, I'm still waiting to hear if I can talk about this, because I don't want to without your permission. Right. Beth saying she can remember once being at the pharmacy and just burst out crying, um, because her life was running her, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Absolutely. And that is something that I think, as anybody who's in the customer service business needs to understand. I used to have, I remember one guy that actually accused me of being a racist. And I looked at him and I said, wow, I hear, I hear what you said, but what is it that I've said to you that makes you think that? Because I actually am extremely hurt that you would think that of me, because I probably am one of the least racist people that you will meet in so many ways. I speak your language to a certain extent. I have friends, and I just went, I'm absolutely shocked. But you are entitled to believe that if that's what you want to believe. It's not true, but you have the right to believe that. But I would like to know what I did that made you think that I was a racist. And guess what? He was just having a snitty day. And he needed somebody to have a snit at. And guess what? I was a white person, and it was projection on his part. Do you know what I mean by that? He just projected his anger onto me, and he used racism as his excuse. And it was so unfair. But what I actually did was I got myself out of the line of fire, and I said, I wouldn't want you to have to deal with somebody that you believe to be racist. So let me move away and let somebody else come out here and help you, which is what I did. And by the way, the person I went to and was my boss, and I said, you need to go talk to this guy. He's just accused me of being a racist. And he said, you? And I said, yeah. And so he said, okay, let me deal with him. I said, thank you. And guess what? My boss went out and explained to him how wrong he could be. Right. And Beth, because she told the truth, right? The pharmacy tech gave her a hug and said, I think you need a hug. I'm a hug doctor. Isn't that wonderful? And I always remember that. I strive to be that way with my customers. Yes. When you can see a customer that is overwhelmed with emotion, you can do little things, but you can also be the catalyst that takes them over the edge. So, and as the pharmacy tech realized, was they had accidentally triggered you over the edge, Beth, and they wanted to make sure that you knew that that wasn't what they meant to do. That wasn't their intent. So quite often, and the discussion on lunchtime talked about this. Okay, thanks, Ange. That quite often we don't know what's gone on. I used to say that to my staff members, which was, you don't know whether this person just crashed their Mercedes on their way in today, or the wife crashed their favorite Mercedes. You don't know what happened up until the time they got in front of you. And until you do, presume that this is not about you. This is about them. And, Ange, I'm sure you've got a lot of input on this one, and so has Beth. But people don't normally lose it like that without reason, right? There's more going on in their life, and very rarely does it have to do with you. So, Ange, I'm really sorry to hear that. Two things I hear, Ange. Number one is about the fact that your job is, they're closing the store, right? Did I understand that correctly? So this must be so sad for you, because you genuinely love that job. Now, they haven't sort of tried to fit you in another store? And the second part of what I hear is that it would have been your 17th wedding anniversary. That's living in the past, Ange, and that sounds like it would have been if you had stayed married, right? Well, you chose not to stay married, therefore that's just living in the past, and the only result you get from that is to feel miserable. But it does tell me that you loved your husband. And so try and remember the good times, not the bad. All right. And be grateful you had the years that you did. I really do recommend that. Concentrate on what made you happy, not on what made you sad. And think about your son and, all the things that came about because you did spend the time together. It's very difficult when you have just lost your job because your mind starts to think lost thoughts. And I think everybody that has studied this to some degree, it is a horrible place to be in for a while. But my feeling is, Angela, that you are a very smart cookie. And well, I know that because I've met you personally. And not only that, you are a delightful human being. And I believe that you had the experience that you had recently with your job that you loved so much for a good reason. It was getting you ready for something else. And so I believe that you now have a past employer that would love to give you a glowing reference. Am I correct in that? They're going to be only too happy to give you a good reference, a really good reference, because they loved you. And that's why I'm actually quite surprised that they haven't offered you another position somewhere. And that is something that if you really did enjoy working with them as much as you did, that is almost worth saying to them, hey, if ever you've got a position that needs a manager again, let me know. And even if it means moving. Because I think that you are a very rare commodity, and they know that. So, but on the other hand, I really do believe that they will give you a glowing reference. So it's a really good time to go looking for another job that you might enjoy as much, knowing that you're going to get a good reference. It's not a maybe that you're going to get a good reference. It's for sure. It's the only one in Vegas. That's why I'm saying, would you be prepared to move out of Vegas if they gave you another position somewhere? They want you to move to LA. Really? And would you consider that? Yeah, I'm not surprised they want you to move. I am sure they don't want to lose you. And do they want you to manage a store in LA? So there are a lot of plus things to this, Angela. The interesting thing is that the fact they need to close the store has nothing to do with you. You know that, right? That is just the store wasn't profitable enough for them to keep it open. And I don't believe that was because of bad management on your part. I believe that just isn't the sort of thing that is going to make a lot of money necessarily. So I would like you to think about the good things that you learned there. And you learned some really good management techniques. I know that. And you learned that there's some really nice people in the world. They're not all a bunch of bozos. And the fact that they want you to move to LA, I think is a huge plus for you. Now, my question would be, why would you consider going, Ange? They really love you. I know that. Anybody who's met you would really love you. You're a nice human being. What's not to love? You're not perfect, but you're a nice human being. At the core, you're a very kind, generous person. So from my perspective, it was like, I'm not at all surprised that they loved you. Hi, and good evening to you, Nyasha. Well done. You got here. Um, they're closing stores all over, but they still want you to go to LA. So what you're saying is that maybe if you went all the way to LA, they would close that store as well, and you'd still be without a job. Is that your thinking? So here's what I would do. The main person who runs the place. Um, I'm not going to talk about the name of the company, but I would say to that person, hey, you know my talent and you know how dedicated I am. If you've got any of your friends who need a good manager, please let them know that who I am. Quite often, they will get you a job faster than you can. Do you understand what I'm saying, Angela? If you are on good speaks with the person who runs the thing, right, your mom and your brother both live there. Why would you move? Exactly. And that's your choice. And I totally get that. No, there's no judgment on my side. The fact you want to stay there, and I know that it's, living in Vegas is a great place. Uh, I was talking about, funny you should say that, Ange, because I was talking about Tony Fater recently, and I was saying, here was a guy that was struggling to make ends meet, and now is a multimillionaire. And I was saying, he went into America's Got Talent, and he won it, and he deserved to win it, and yet a few years later, he's worth something like, I can't remember what I said, 124 million now. I believe he just signed a $100 million contract at the. Hmm, where's he playing? I want to say the Bellagio, but it's not the Bellagio. It is the Mirage, right? So I'm going, and they named the theater after him. So I'm going. That's not a bad move, to go from not being able to make ends meet very well and taking a Hail Mary chance at America's Got Talent, and a couple of years later being worth 124 million. Yeah, that's rags to riches stuff. So, and funny enough, when I was reading it, I was thinking, if I get back to Vegas, I'm going to tell Ange I want to go and see him live. Because Ange has tickets to things. She has great ways of doing things. Yeah, it's too risky a move for you. And so that's okay. But it doesn't mean that they can't help you, Ange. It means that they now, at some level, are a little bit beholden to you to see what they can do to help you. So I would actually go from that perspective and say, hey, whatever the name of the main person is, I totally understand why you need to do what you need to do. And I just wondered if there's any way that you have anybody that needs a good manager. And if so, please put my name forward. Or who should I be contacting? Who would you recommend I speak to? I would get that person to help you, because at some level, they will want to help you, Ange, because you were good for them. So I would say it could be a magical opportunity for you to get into some very interesting work. You know, When you're good, Angela, it is really important. It was like Beth, I was not surprised when Beth got promoted because she has, like you, has very good work ethic and also is good at what she does, and looks for work and looks for ways to make things happen. And that's who you are as well. So you you two are rare, and therefore it never surprises me that you do well or that people would want to help you. Yes, you see, I agree with you, Beth, that maybe it's fate. Maybe you're meant to do something more than this. And but when you're in that position, it doesn't feel like that, Beth. If you know what I'm saying. So, and it all depends on where your mind is at the time. And so I would say, Angela, what can we do to help you? What would be the best support that we could give you? Because the obviously you believe that at some level we can help you because you came into the chat. And I want to send you a hug. But how can we help you? And well, we don't know that, Beth. I mean, everybody needs a hug, but I know Angela pretty well. The other thing is, I also know um that she bought a property this year, and so that would be extra stress for her. Do you have enough of your property rented out that you are pretty safe in terms of the property, Ange? Yeah, I really believe there are bigger things to come for you, Ange. So let us know how we can best support you. I don't want to assume that we know how. But Manja, you've been a viewer for a long time. you we haven't seen you on the chat, but you've been a viewer for a long time. How long have you been following us now? And how kind of you to send a hug from Australia. Wow, Ange. So you got an interview on Tuesday. Jody, can you make a note of that for me, please, so that we remember to follow up and see how she did? About 4 years. Yeah, I'm going to say that. I know that you've been commenting for a long time. You know, you might not have been to the broadcast, but I know that you have been around for quite some time. All right. So, Ange, let us know how we can support you. Yeah, I think maybe more as well. Well, not that many more because we've only been going for 6 years, I think. Sorry, I've got allergies going on, and yes, I've taken the meds. Why don't the allergy meds work? I need them to work better. All right, so let's do some quotes from Mahatma Gandhi, just so that we can get back on track in terms of nonviolent communication. It, what he said was, "A coward is incapable of exhibiting love. It is the prerogative of the brave." Ah, I've always wondered whether it's Noeline or is it pronounced Noeline? Is it the first or the second? Kerry's great support for you. I'm delighted to hear that. So I always get confused as to how it's pronounced. Is it Noeline or is it Noeline? first or the second one? Let me know. All right. So, do you understand what Mahatma Gandhi was saying? That a coward is incapable of exhibiting love. They can't get past their ego enough to actually be um, to be a giver of love. They're so into themselves they can't share their love. And you need to. How many of you have found that out? You need to be a little bit emotionally mature to be able to get out of your own way and actually show people who you really are. Right, Angela, and that's why I asked about the house, because I can understand that that would be a big stressor for you. Um, so, have you thought of a plan B in case you hit a problem there? And if not, then let's do some. Right. So exactly. I'm sure that unemployment but barely covers your mortgage. Yeah. So the reality is that maybe you need to rent out more of the rooms or something on a short-term basis just so that you can cover the mortgage. And how many of you can relate to this? What Mahatma Gandhi said was, a no uttered from the deepest conviction is better than a yes merely uttered to please, or worse, to avoid trouble. Do you know, it's okay sometimes to just say no. When somebody asks you whether you can, come to this, that, and the other, how many of you are capable of saying no? And I've always recommended to people that if you need to say no, say it the nice way, which is, something, I want to say yes so badly, but unfortunately I can't. Oh, Nyasha, get some sleep, honey. That's quite all right. We don't take it that you don't care. You did a great job at lunchtime, and I'm sure that you're tired. Yeah. So what I try to do is I say, yes, I'd love to come, but unfortunately I can't come on that particular day. And by the way, you don't have to tell them why. Just, you can say that you can't come. I like this quote from him. He said that an eye for an eye only ends up making the whole world blind. All right. So when you say, well, it's not fair, they did it to me, so now I need to do something to them. When you're talking revenge talk, nobody wins. You just end up perpetuating the problem. And I'm certain some of you realize that now, that you can see it in terms of your growth. Anger is the enemy of nonviolence, and pride is a monster that swallows you up. How many of you can feel that one? All right, that anger is the enemy of nonviolence. That when you allow people to make you angry, Beth says, but revenge feels so good sometimes. Yeah, you know something? I used to waste a lot of my time in that thinking as well, Beth. But you know what I found out? I really, I think Christ said it, right? The revenge is mine, saith the Lord, right? So it's like I don't need revenge anymore. All right. I don't need to be revengeful anymore. I used to. They did this to me, I'm going to get them back. I really can't be bothered. I don't have enough time left in my life to fight these battles anymore. Why would I waste my time? And why would I lower myself to that level? And listen to what he said here. Even if you are a minority of one, the truth is the truth. Good point there, Jody. You can listen on the replay anytime, Nyasha, if you choose to. Good point. All right, the truth is the truth. Um, it is interesting. I stood up for somebody once when they were being unjustly attacked, and I stood up. And because I stood up to defend them, I ended up in a lot of personal challenges. They took it out on me rather than on her, which was okay with me. But the interesting thing was the person that I defended said to me many times over, why did you do that? Why did you put yourself at risk to defend me? And I said, because it was the right thing to do. Right? It's not about what the result was, and I didn't give a thought to what would happen to me. It was like, that was not right. What they were doing to you was not right, and I needed to stand up and be counted on this one. How many of you can imagine me doing that? Right? Which is like, and it's like I am one of those people where it is important in certain situations, because I was there and I knew what happened didn't happen the way that they were saying. I was witness to it, so therefore I could speak from a place of truth. It wasn't hearsay, it was reality. I was there, so I could talk to it, and I did, and I got into a lot of trouble because of it, and I still to this day am glad I did it. So even if you're a minority of one, the truth is the truth. And he also said, and I think this is interesting, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they fight you, and then you win. Well, Jody, this is. Am I still moving? Yes, I am still moving towards moving. I'm getting very, very much closer. My house hopefully will be on the market within the next month, I believe. Selling it will be interesting. We'll see how that goes. And he also said gentleness, self-sacrifice, and generosity are the exclusive possession of no one race or religion. I think that is so true, right? Gentleness, self-sacrifice, and generosity are the exclusive possession of no one race or religion. We all have the ability to do that, right? We all have the ability to be gentle. We all have the ability to be self-sacrificing, and we all have the ability to be generous, regardless of our state in life. Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. That's what creates happiness. Your happiness is not external, your happiness is internal. How many of you have discovered that? It's not about the things you have or don't have. It is about who you are as a human that makes you happy. And I think that's a very important thing. And the same way as our ability to cope with things is different. We don't see everything, we don't take everything personally. We realize that, yeah, life happens, and there has to be a reason for it at some level. We don't know what it is yet, but life happens, and we will learn from it. So Mahatma Gandhi also said, I cannot teach you violence, as I do not myself believe in it. I can only teach you not to bow your heads before anyone, even at the cost of your life. Right? That we have the right to hold our heads up and to be proud of who we are. He said, I have nothing new to teach the world. Truth and nonviolence are as old as the hills. All I have done is to try experiments in both. on as vast a scale as I could. To tell your truth is a huge risk for a lot of people. And some of you are learning to do it in a non-violent way. For some of us, the only time we told the truth was in anger. Do any of you relate to that? That, you would bury your truth and bury your truth, and then one day you get so angry you tell the truth, and the person would go, where did that come from? And you realize that you hadn't told the truth for a long time. And so, to me, as we evolve as human beings, as we get more emotionally intelligent, if you like, that we learn to tell the truth and realize that's all that it is. It is our truth. It doesn't mean that anybody else has to agree with it. I say that to people all the time who ask for my help, and I go, hey, I can give you my opinion. Doesn't mean it's right. All right. I can give you my opinion from my experience, but it doesn't mean it's right. It's important for you to have options, and I can give you some of those. But what you do is your right. You get to choose what you do with your life. I can't tell you the right way because I don't know it. And how about this quote from him? He said, I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. How many of you can relate to the fact that you've allowed people with incredible negativity to enter into your life and into your mind? And that they have, with their dirty feet, if you like, really changed the way you see the world. If you really remember, you are a nice, kind human being. And that you allow these people who have their own stuff going on to affect you. Jody, I think you can see now quite clearly that what that nurse said was her stuff. It had nothing to do with you whatsoever. It struck me, Jody, when that nurse said that to you. Is that nurse, do you happen to know if that nurse is married or not? Because there's part of me that wondered whether she would love to have a Lionel in her life. And that at some level she was, sad that she didn't have him, or somebody like him in her life. Because that would make sense to me at some level, that she would react that way. He said, if we are to teach real peace in the world and we are to carry on a real war against war, we shall have to begin with the children. Yes, Jody, you see, that's what I'm wondering. Whether she saw the way that Lionel looked at you and the way that Lionel cares about you and for you, and that at some level she was jealous. And that made her angry. And, you can almost hear her thinking, how come she gets to have somebody like this and I don't? All right. And, so it could be a very sad thing for her. He also said that in a very gentle way, you can shake the world. One of the things I always talk to YouTubers about, when they ask me what I do and why I do it, I said, I do what I do because in my own small way, I believe I can make a difference. And, my focus has never been, on the money side of it. I will obviously raise what money I can to help me pay the bills. Otherwise, it becomes a very expensive hobby. But, the truth is that I believe that people on YouTube have the ability to make the world a better place. Because we do have an audience and we do have people who care about what we have to say, and therefore we do have influence. And, the influence can either be directed to make me more money, or it can be directed to help other people. And I've always felt that it's important to know why you're why you're doing YouTube. And if you know why, it makes it so much easier to do it. It was funny. Jody was saying, how did I manage to broadcast at lunchtime when I was suffering with an ocular migraine last night. So Kerry, I know about the ocular migraines, and I just had to smile when I thought about it, and I said, "Gosh, I'd have to have something a lot." Well, I don't want to wish that on myself, but you know what I mean. It's like I don't think I would allow an ocular migraine to stop me doing a broadcast if I possibly could. I would just take the actions I know I need to take, which is take some ibuprofen and get some sleep, because an ocular migraine doesn't last for very long if you treat it correctly. And Kerry, I'm certain that you found that out as well. If you take instant action with it, you can shut it down quite quickly. But what it needs is something to deal with the blood flow, which is why I take ibuprofen. And then it needs you to calm down from whatever's going on, which is why I go to sleep. And by the time I woke up again, the ocular migraine had gone. It had, everything had calmed down. And if you've had an ocular migraine, it's quite a scary thing. The first time I had it, I was quite convinced I was having some sort of a stroke or something. And now I just know, okay, this is an ocular migraine, and I don't get scared of it anymore. So what? Oh, ocular. Hang on, Isabel. Let me spell it for you. Hold on, sweetie. It's an unusual name. So it has to do with the eyes. It is when you get split vision. It's like somebody took a cookie cutter. Do you know the prism that you see on glass? It's like somebody takes a cookie cutter and shifts my vision. And what I get to see is, you get them as well. Okay, so you know what they are. The first time I got them, I was quite convinced I was not long for this world. But, what I found is if you treat them correctly and quickly, they don't last too long. Now, Mahatma Gandhi also said that my life is my message. How many of you send a message to the world by the way you live your life? And I don't know why. I thought that was an incredibly wise thing. All right? That your message is the way you live your life. Are you seen to be who you want to be? Or do people see you in a different way? And he also said, and you've heard this said a different way, but nobody can hurt me without my permission. Um, Eleanor Roosevelt also said that. So I believe that is so true. The only people that can hurt me are the people that I allow into my brain with their dirty feet. Because if I have built my self-esteem solidly enough, if I have faith in who I am, then I don't need everybody to understand that. I just need to know that I am who I am, and I'm okay with that. And so therefore, if I allow people to hurt me, I have allowed them into my mind in a negative way. And that is my responsibility not to do that. Again, we talked about this a great deal at lunchtime. Yeah. So I wondered, Isabel, if you have a way of dealing, because quite a few of us actually here on the broadcast suffer from ocular migraine. So interesting if you've got a way of treating yours that is different. And Kerry, how do you treat yours when you have it? Because I really found out that once I knew how to look after it, it didn't really worry me as much. I just knew what I had to do. By the way, when they used to happen to me at work, I used to get home pretty quickly because carrying on trying to work, wasn't going to make them better. Right. And Beth is saying as well, right? A dark room and sleep it off. Yes. I find taking ibuprofen helps because it's decreases the pressure. And quite honestly, it's normally pretty easy to go to sleep. It's normally like, yeah, I really do need to sleep now. And I think yesterday I probably only slept for a couple of hours, maybe 3, but it was enough um, to help it go away. All right, Jody's saying she wears sunglasses indoors when she's light sensitive, and I have ice packs handy all the time. Funny enough, for me, um, I don't get that light sensitivity, but then I don't sit around very bright lights. I suppose my computer is a bright light, but that's why I turn over and go to sleep. It's like, okay, let me pull the covers over my head and get some sleep now. So how many of you can see that you are moving towards less violence in your life? That you don't want as much drama, that you don't want you don't need everybody to agree with you, that you don't want to fight every fight that there is out there, that maybe, it's okay to let people disagree with you. It's okay to agree to disagree. But that doesn't mean that you don't stand up for what you believe. That means that pick your fights, the ones that you really need to have, and let the rest go. And to my mind, if you don't, who was it that said that? If you don't believe in something, you will fall for anything. And so, do you believe in certain things and do you hold them dear? Uh, and I think that also is a very important part. You know, I look at what's happening in the world. Yes, there's a saying in French, Isabel saying that I prefer to be happy than to be right. I want to tell you something, Isabel, that is a major step towards happiness. That you understand that being happy is more important to you than being right. And quite often the people we're trying to convince are not people that are ever going to understand where you're coming from anyway. And so the most magical way is just to agree to disagree. And Jody's saying, choose your battles is a bit of priceless information, in my opinion. Conserving energy is imperative to me. Yes. Jody, we don't know. I keep saying that to people as well, which is, I don't know how much time I've got left. So I don't want to be wasting it fighting battles I really am not that interested in. I will still fight some battles, I'm sure, in my time, but I'm going to pick them a lot more carefully. Yeah. So and actually, we should, Jody, if you can make a note of that, we actually should do one broadcast where we do the quotes of Dr. Phil because he definitely has hundreds of quotes we could be working with for quite a while. So to me, this is like, when we do these broadcasts, this is not about that we want to just be perfect tomorrow. I keep trying to remind everybody that we're all on a journey and each one of us is on our own journey. This is not about being as good as so and so or I'm not as smart as somebody else. We each are taking our own journey and we each have a lot to learn. This is not about I don't do this because I think I'm better than anybody else. I do this because I know there are people that need the journey. Right. And, Isabel's saying a quote from Dr. Phil, if you don't get real about fat, you're going to get real fat. Yes. And, that's the whole thing. When my doctor said to me, you're diabetic, I said, Yep, self-inflicted wound. I didn't even fight it. I didn't say that's not fair and oh my gosh. I just looked at him, I went, okay, self-inflicted wound. You see, I took total accountability for the fact that I had given myself diabetes. Yeah, it wasn't genetic. It wasn't that I inherited it. I just ate too much sugar in my life. And I'm of an age where that's going to start showing. So to me, it has been incredible. By the way, Jody, I wanted to talk to you a bit about that because yesterday, for some reason, I kept having these urges to eat carbs. And I don't know if anybody else relates to this, but it was it was an insane yo-yo I was going through. And so but I also know that if I eat the carbs, I need to eat them, something to compensate for it, to balance it out. So I was having this journey yesterday, Jody, you would have laughed after I woke up from the migraine thing, where I'm going, I really, I really am craving carbs for some reason. And I went, well, if that's what your body's calling for, then, do it. But make sure you compensate for it. So I was literally the calories were mounting up yesterday. Ah, that's interesting. Jody's saying that happens to me during her fibro flares. So I'm wondering if it's a migraine related thing. That's interesting. But I was really proud of myself, Jody, because I kept checking the carb rating and I'm going, okay, my carbs are up over 50%. I need to have a boiled egg. And then that would bring it down level again. And then I get another need for something carb related. And I went, okay, fine. And then I'd have some string cheese and now I was balanced again. And I literally the calories were mounting up, but I kept in balance. I don't know if that's going to work or not. I guess I can only find that out in time. But, to me, it was like, if that's what your body is craving. Really? Jody's saying I've got it 100%. Well, that's, I did, Beth said that to me. Don't worry about the calories as much. Worry about keeping it balanced and keeping it under control. Now, I'm not at Beth's stage where, Beth can go with zero carbs. I haven't reached that stage yet. Okay, so that you think that the carb craving comes with the migraine, maybe. That's interesting. It frightened me a little bit. Right. So, Nolene is saying that she has COPD, and yes, it's self-inflicted. You see, when we can own it, I think that's emotionally very mature. You know what I mean? It's like nobody gave this to me. I did this to myself. Um, and I think we fight it better when we know that as well, Nolene. I think when we can own, okay, fine, I created this, so that means I can uncreate it if I'm careful. Now, I'm not sure if one is able to reverse COPD, but I'm pretty sure that we can learn to manage it. Right, and you see, that's what I did as well. Now, the question is, though, Jody, did the fact that I had white toast with peanut butter cause the migraine? I don't think so, because I did eat that the day before. So which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Or was my body having the need for toast because the migraine was on its way? I don't know. But I'm going to be more aware of that because I very rarely have toast these days. I think once a week I allow myself to have toast. And by the way, for those of you who are interested in my diabetes journey, I am doing a diary about it, and anybody that's a subscriber to the DearMamaSal.com pages, that there is a section there that is only for subscribers. And therefore, if you'd like to be part of reading how I'm doing with this and how I'm coping with it, it actually I'm finding it fascinating. Yeah, Jody's saying, let's see what the pattern is. Let's keep an eye on things. I think that's the whole thing. I'm finding this a fascinating adventure into food, quite honestly. And, if you could see me, I'm back to really pre-prepping foods. I did decide to buy some pre-packaged stuff from my local supermarket. Um, uh, which are sort of a bit more like Beth's Starbucks pre-packaged protein packs. But when I saw the price of it, I thought that's really interesting. I can create these myself much more cheaply. But I'm going to buy a couple a week for the days when I don't, when I run out of pre-prepping or whatever. Yes. So Nolene's saying that she's been managing her COPD for about 10 years. Good for you. You see, I do believe that if we can own it at a certain level, we can manage it at a certain level. I always remember a friend of mine whose mother got cancer. Hi, Paul. Good to see you. And how are you feeling, Paul? And I remember that her mother got cancer, and it sticks in my brain to this day that her mother's reaction to it was not why me, but why not me. All right. That she saw it as a great challenge. You're feeling a lot better. I'm glad to hear that, Paul. What actually happened? Was it a stroke? A mini stroke? You need to have a test done. Okay. And when are you going to have that done, Paul? Do you know? Is it booked already, or are you still got to book it? And by the way, for those of you who've been following my progress, I will get the results from my CAT scan this coming week. Thursday, I think. Let me see what day. Maybe Tuesday. Tuesday. You need to book it. Okay. So, and what test are they going to do, Paul? If you can share that. What were they looking for on the CAT scan, Beth? The interesting thing is that the British Columbia health system um, decided that anybody who had a history of smoking was entitled to have a CAT scan. Um, and so that was an elective thing. In other words, I didn't have to have one done because of something happening. It is one that I chose. Okay, you're going to have an echocardiogram on your heart. That actually, as far as I remember, Paul, that's a very easy test to have done. Hi, Pat. No, they just did my lungs. So I actually, it was, I could choose to have it done or not. And I said, why would I not have it done? I think it's very important, for me to know. And it was interesting because the specialist said to me, some people really don't want to know. And I said, well, I'm not that person. My attitude is, no, I have not listed the house yet, Nana. But I am definitely believe that it probably will be listed in the coming month. So you've got to have an ultrasound on your neck, all right? I hear that your growth went away completely, Paul. That it was awesome. And that you need a stress test. Have you had a stress test before? Hi, Aaron. No, okay. So the good news is, Paul, before I had my stress test done, I looked it up on YouTube, and there are lots of videos that show you exactly what they will do on a stress test. I'll get the results on Tuesday, Pat. But I actually, I'm feeling, um, I'm not concerned until I have reason to be concerned. As far as I'm concerned, I have no reason to be concerned. Look at all these people whose lives you have touched, Pat, with your beautiful quilts, and I'm one of them. Have I seen the nutritionist? Not yet. I see the nutritionist in March. And I'm hoping, Nana, that when I go there, I will already be doing most of the things they're going to recommend. That is what I believe, is that I've done enough research, I've made enough changes, um, and I've talked to enough people who've got diabetes that I believe I've made most of the changes. The question will be whether I want to go on the, is it metformin? Pat, you never told us how you lost the weight. For those of you who don't know, Pat actually lost an incredible amount of weight, and I just wondered how you did it, Pat. If you care to discuss that. If you don't care to, I totally understand that as well. Metformin. Thank you very much indeed. That's wonderful to hear, Paul. I'm delighted that you're happy. And you're still losing, Pat. Are you going to tell us how you did it? Or there are a lot of us who would love to know. Um, and the funny thing is, Pat, when I think back, when you told me a couple of years ago that there is no way that you would change your eating, you're the happiest you've ever been. Isn't that wonderful, Paul? What an incredible thing to be able to say. I am so happy for you. You had three-quarters of your stomach removed. Yes, I wondered whether you had done it that way. That is a major way to lose weight. Was it out of choice, or was it because they had to remove it? And again, don't answer that if you don't want to. Yes, Pat, that's what I am trying to learn to do, and it's such a difference, isn't it? I still eat everything, just not as much. Out of choice. Okay, good for you. I want to tell you that's really what I'm working at. And the other thing is I'm working at making sure my carbs stay below 50%. Whatever I have to do to make that happen. I can eat what I like, but my carbs have to stay below 50%. And I find that keeping that balance, I'm beginning to feel a lot better. The only thing was, I actually, I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but I have been so lacking energy for so long that a couple of days ago, I got energy. The day before yesterday, I woke up early and I got up and I then had a major problem because I was like, Beth the Energizer Bunny, but my version of it all day long. And then the next day I had the migraine. So it was like, you know. So now you're struggling to get the calories in. Okay, Pat. Well, you know, the calories are easier to put in than the other way around. You're soon going to be making your wife dinner, so you got married. Oh, your soon-to-be wife. You gave her a ring in April. All right. Well, congratulations, Paul. I'm very happy for you. No, he got engaged in April. Oh, wait a minute. You're giving her a ring in April. Yeah, Pat, when I'm writing about this, one of the things that I'm writing about are the sneaky carbs. I mean, I am really amazed at the things that I used to eat that really are loaded with carbs, and I didn't know it. And so now I sort of get a sense of humor. Paul, I think it's wonderful that you're happy. To me, that is the greatest news that you can bring anybody is that you're happy. So well done. And I know you've been through a tough couple of years of it, but the end result is you're happy. And I think that is a great gift for anybody. So well done. To find happiness is, during your lifetime is a wonderful gift. And I am sure. Yes, Pat, you use my Fitness Pal. I use my Fitbit. I plug everything into my Fitbit. And what I love about it now is if I can keep the carbs below 50%, I know I must be eating pretty healthily. But sometimes I have to adjust it. Yeah, you learn to read labels big time, don't you? Yeah. And isn't it amazing what a portion actually is? That was a big surprise to me. All right, so Kerry's saying Mike makes me happy even when he's grumpy, and I'm grumpy as well. Yeah, so learning to be happy, but the really great happiness is when you can make yourself happy. You're not dependent on somebody else to make you happy. We all need love, and we all have the ability to give love. And so the thing that I really say to people is that if all our love is external, that we've got it all related to somebody else, then we're not basically happy ourselves. We're relying on that other person to make us feel happy. And I would encourage you all to be happy with who you are and not to give that responsibility to somebody else if you can. You can only eat 4 ounces at a time. Yes, I'm noticing, I eat a cup of I can eat whatever I like, but it's just a cupful, Pat. That's the way, when I cook meals, I put them into 1-cup containers. So, like one night I'll have pasta, but it's only a cup of it. Yes, Kerry, I totally agree with you. All right. Kerry's saying, I'm learning to live in the moment. It's the hardest lesson is learning to love myself. I want to tell you that is so true. If we don't love ourselves, then we put too much responsibility on the other person. It's like, your job is to make me happy. No, that's not true. Right, Pat. And that's the interesting thing. When we eat in a more healthy way, we need to eat regular meals, right? To me, I found that a cup of grapes, turns out to be a really nice snack for me now. Beth is saying, I love myself most days, but I dislike me sometimes, and it's okay. Yeah, I have those days too, Beth. That's when I have to have my sense of humor. You're right. So Jody's saying her portion of mac and cheese versus what the box portion said is vastly different. I'm actually so proud of myself, Jody, that I now can cook a meal for downstairs and I will load their plates up and then I will give myself 1 spoonful. I'm really amazed that I can do that. And Yvonne will say to me, "Is that all you're having?" I said, "No, I'm going to thoroughly enjoy that. And I'm going to put the rest into small containers so I can continue to enjoy it." All right, you don't do a lot of fruit because it has sugar. Exactly. But what I've learned is, if it's sweet, eat meat. In other words, if you're going to have something with sugar in it, like fruit, then have cheese with it. Mac and cheese will be my downfall. I'm planning to do that on Sunday because it's Yvonne's favorite. And Yvonne's not meant to eat it either, but it is her favorite. Yes, fruit and cheese together. Yep. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to do mac and cheese with ham in it, so that there is some meat in the ham and cheese. Or even who knew that bacon was so good for you? Pasta is not good for you. No, I quite agree. But if you make it with whole wheat pasta and you only have a cupful, it's not altogether bad either. And if what I am inclined to do, Pat, is I actually plan my day so that I basically eat very good things, so that I can enjoy the mac and cheese. Does that make sense? It's like, okay, I'm making room for the mac and cheese. You're down 52 pounds, Jody. I am so proud of you. You must be losing liquid as well, then. That is incredible. I'd like to think that we helped you at some level, Jody. Am I being very selfish in that? um, even things like the arm rails, I think you've got the circulation going better as well, Jody. It's funny when I start to get swollen feet, I keep thinking about you and and your lymphoderma, and I'm going, I can get my circulation going. I know how to do it. And I literally will sit there and do arm rolls if I can't do anything else. I'm going, I got to keep my feet up, but I can still get the circulation going. Oh, that's so great. And Jody's saying, yes, Sal, losing fluid as well. You've inspired me so much. Well, I want to tell you, it's about it's really important. Do I eat salt? No, I eat very little salt. Nana, I'm not saying I don't eat any salt, because I'm sure it's in some things that I eat. But I really try not to add salt to my food. I always say, when I'm cooking a meal, I always say to people, feel free to add as much salt as you need. I just don't allow myself to put salt in my food anymore. But there are certain things that you eat that will have salt automatically. Yeah, that will automatically have it. The only meal I do sometimes add salt to is the Sunday evening meal. All right, I try not to add salt at all. But I'm pretty certain, yes, the pink salt. Yeah, but it's still salt. Yeah, Pat, it's a habit, isn't it? Your taste buds start to change. I am amazed how I can taste salt in things that I didn't have before. Yeah, funny enough, I'm using more Indian spices. I never have been one to like hot food, but I'm adding a little bit more things like cumin and stuff like that to add. I'm drinking. Hi, Chris. Right, and so we are capable of controlling that. Yeah, but it's still salt, Jody. I was reading a thing about it not so long ago. One of the problems that I've had, Beth is saying, Sal, have you thought about holding small weights while you walk? Or if it's cold outside, use them to do your arm lifts, make your muscles burn more calories. Absolutely. And I read somewhere, if you haven't got any weights, grab a couple of soup cans. That's a good enough weight to cause some resistance. Um, I think it's really, an important thing for us to realize that we don't have to have the fancy equipment. If we're capable of walking, by the way, Jody, a couple of soup cans for you, and do, different sort of arm exercises. Even though you can't walk, you can still, build up your upper body. Wow, Isabel has done a year without sugar. That is amazing. I must admit that I am using less and less sugar, and I am using more and more stevia. Jody's got wrist weights. Well done, Jody. What about wrist weights and a couple of soup cans? See how long you can hold. Look at that flab, people. Really. Apparently, I need some soup cans on there. Is stevia good for you? It's better for you than sugar. I do know that. And it's not bad for a diabetic. In fact, it's absolutely zero carbs. From the research that I did. Yep, stevia comes from a flower. Yep. So I did the research, and they recommend it. And quite honestly, I sprinkle it on top of my lattes. I don't even mix it in. I just sprinkle it on top, a little bit of stevia on top, so that as I drink the latte, I'm getting that sweetness. I use it. I also use it in my crepes now. I used to have sugar in my crepes. I don't. I just put lemon and a bit of stevia in there. So I'm learning to do that. You see, remember what I said at the beginning. I don't want to hear what I can't do. I want to find out what I can do. Because I wanted to see it as a journey of learning rather than a death sentence of sorts. I watched the first season of Angela's asking, does anybody here watch Grace and Frankie? I watched the first season, and I think a bit of the second, but I don't watch it anymore. Yeah, Paul's also saying that he used to. Yep. The main thing is you're not using sugar. Don't worry about how to spell it, Isabel. All right, so Isabel's saying for pasta, I use the zoodle with zucchini. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never made mac and cheese out of zucchini, but I think I could. Or you make mac and cheese with cauliflower and cheese. All right, that's interesting. I'm pretty certain that that's a good idea. Yes, you use spreads as well. Not a fan of stevia. Yes, I think it's like everybody has to find their own things. Um, I'm I'm definitely, love doing those stringable things. Yes, that is Jane Fonda in Grace and Frankie. You're correct in that, Nana. Yeah, I love trivia. I must admit, I didn't do well on the other ones, but trivia, I really do enjoy. And one of the things I wondered was, why is it so expensive? Do you know why it's so expensive? I actually did a bit of research because I'm going, wow, that's expensive. When you see the price of sugar, how come trivia is so expensive? Trivia and stevia both come from the same source, I believe. Isabel, it doesn't matter, honey. Really, we understood what you were talking about. This is called communication. We're not on a spelling bee, but yeah, I'm glad you found out how to spell it. It's interesting, but I've also found out. I don't know if any of you are into this as well. I still have treats. Hang on a second. To me, one of the important things is to always have things in the fridge that I can have. And so I have, these little containers of treats. These are nut thins with cheddar, which I can have that amount of. No longer do I eat a whole packet. These are multigrain rounds. But I am allowed, one of these a day. And then this is one of my homemade protein boxes, and I've got a boiled egg. I've got a few cheese crackers in here. I've got some cheese, and I've also got in here a bacon and cheese burrito. So that is like a lunch for me, but it's balanced out with cheeses and egg and things like that. So, it's like I never thought I was going to be able to do this way, but I'm actually quite surprised. I also can feel that I can feel when I need to eat vegetables, for example, or I do have grapes, but it's only a cupful because I know grapes are, have a lot of sugar in them. So, Paul, I'm delighted that you are so happy, and it's interesting that you are so happy with Lisa. That is wonderful. It's actually somebody I know. Hi, Lauren. Good to see you. Lauren, I cannot thank you enough for helping us with your input at lunchtime today, that one you allowed us to talk about. I don't know if you've seen the video, but I'm certain a lot of people will be helped by that because it was a great example on how we process things as a child. And one of the things I said, Lauren, is that, what a pity that we don't teach our children and our grandchildren the process of how to process that sort of remark. And that is why um, what I did was actually give the steps on how to do that, because I thought, if one person bothers to teach their grandchildren how to do this in a healthy way, we would have made a difference in the world. Do you know what I mean? So, Lauren, thank you so much. Yeah, it was interesting, Pat. It was about how to deal with rude people who are rude to you. And what I was explaining was, I wasn't sure, Lauren, and I didn't ask you, and I'm sorry about that because I meant to, which was, how old were you when you heard that and took it in? Because my sense was that you were a child. And that as a child, you didn't have the questions, you didn't dare ask the questions that probably you would have wanted to. But I really do want to thank you because it led to a lot of interesting conversation, and it really, I know it, a lot of people came up with a lot of comments around it. So it was really very kind of you to share that. And, whenever I put those polls up, I am so grateful for the people that give me real life examples, because, I can give 1,001 examples, but when it's from somebody that it makes a difference. You were a child, yes. You can't remember how old. All right, give any guess of roughly how old? It was the day of a funeral, so you were already emotionally charged. All right, so that would have more impact because you were originally, this funeral of a friend of yours. Wow. Yeah, so something like that would have even bigger impact. But the point that I was making, Lauren, was that quite a lot of people call other people pumpkin as a term of endearment. But the way that you heard it was the opposite. You think you were 12, right? And what a pity that you didn't know how to process it. And, what struck me as so interesting was how many of us were never taught how to process that in a healthy way. And what we did is we just took it in as bad stuff when, maybe it wasn't. And we never bothered to check it, whether it was meant to hurt us or not, because we were a child, and, you don't do that. So, but for Jody as well, and Nikki, if she's hearing this at any time, I really appreciated the examples you gave, because it really helped frame what I was trying to achieve. Right, you used to shut down whenever your father said things like that to me. And by the way, that's probably why he continued to do it, because that's how he shut you down. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying, Lauren, listen to the discussion we had, and then think to yourself, who can you help? Who do you know that's 11 or 12 now in your lifetime, that's in your circle, that you can teach them not to do what you did? And listen to it first so you understand the points that I made. But then say to yourself, now then, how can I pay this forward and help somebody else not go there? To teach them what questions to ask. And so, I'm a great believer that we get sent these things to help us, but also to help other people. All right, Beth said her nickname as a child was Chicken Little because she would run from people. Yes. Why did they scare you, Beth? Yeah, and that's why they say, Lauren, we cannot choose our family. All right, but we can choose the family we choose to have. Right? It's like that's if you've got I know that Kerry had similar problems. Yours was Lady Plushbottom. Oh, right, Beth. You're right. Beth was saying that she wasn't supposed to let people know how we lived, right? Because her mum had mental illness. Yes, your mum was very verbally abusive, Pat, right? And it's when you grow up with that, um, you have to put up barriers. How are the sunflowers doing? Are they planted yet, Pat? You know, it's about this time of the year that I always think about Bill and his sunflowers. Wonder if he's planted them yet. Are the tulips up yet your way? Mine are about this far up now, but it's been snowing. Not yet. Okay, he hasn't planted them yet. Well, tell him I was thinking of him, as usual. Yeah, it's amazing, Pat, how great an impact that all had in my life. I just want you to know from the bottom of my soul that I never come to spring without thinking about you two at a very different level. Isn't that interesting? And I want you to know that you've had that impact. And Ange, it's funny when I think of the impact that you have had on my life, if you're still here. It's, I still smile when I see your name, and it really pleases me. And I'm thinking, I keep seeing things about Vegas, and I'm thinking, next time I'm down there, I'm going to make sure Ange and I do this, this, and this, because I'm pretty sure we'll laugh a lot. He's going to visit. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Pat, I really want to thank you, because it is really, really, um, I speak a lot um, about stuff, but I just want you to know that I think about you guys so often. It's amazing. And it would be wrong of me to not let you know that. And your generosity and your kindness, you are one of those people, Pat, that, you are a good human being. And, on so many different levels, it's not even funny. I think you have a great deal to teach the world. And I know you do it through the children that you foster and adopt, and that you have, passed your greatness onto others. Yeah, I believe that you do try your best. I really do. And I believe you succeed. You don't just try, you succeed. And I think, Pat, that, every day that goes by, I just wanted you to know that you've made an impact on my life, the two of you, you and Bill together. Because I'm amazed how many times I talk to Bill as I go outside my house, and I see, I keep seeing these, the flowers coming up, and I'm going, "Oh, Bill would not like you very much right now." It's just like, but it always makes me smile. You've got a brand new little one. Which one is this? Not the one you adopted, right? Hi, Nana. Which new one have you got now? There's a special place for you in heaven, Pat. There's no doubt about it. 10 days old? Are you serious? Wow. A little girl or a little boy? Ah, that is so sad to hear. Um, for the mods, just let that one be. Don't show it. I know that YouTube will have a problem with that word. A little boy. Well, I am so glad that the little boy, that the little boy gets to have you to look after him. Congratulations. Sad how you got him, but happy that he's with you. I'd have to say that. No, Pat, that's quite all right. I understand that. What I try to warn the moderators of is that YouTube is very different from Vaughn or Tiny Chat. YouTube is watching absolutely everything that gets typed. And that, for example, one of the moderators decided to do something to because they didn't like something that Nyasha said. And you know what? It took me nearly a week to get her to be allowed to comment again, because they take those sort of warnings very seriously. And that wasn't fair on Nyasha, because what she said really didn't warrant that at all. It was a personal thing by the moderator, and when that person comes back on again, I'm going to let them know what the result was, because I'm certain it will horrify them. Yes, YouTube is getting very strong, but it's not a bad thing. I personally think that it's great that they actually give me a warning to say this word came up in conversation, and do I want to allow it? And the answer is everybody that's in the chat gets to see it, but I don't need to discuss it. Do you understand what I'm saying? The message, well, no, actually, people don't get to see that word. Yeah. Yes, I agree with Nana on this one. The birth mother, what a terrible experience to go through. And thank goodness that she knows that everything is okay. And thank you for the prayers there, Nana. Yeah. Aren't we lucky that we have such nice people in our midst and people who genuinely care and that level? So, Pat, congratulations. And Jody, I think, did you say 54 pounds now? I hope you are so proud of yourself because some of that has to be fluid. Where can you feel it, Jody? 52. Okay. Yeah, and Nana's saying that as we know that somebody gave her away, and she's 60. God has someone to watch over us. Yes, and in exchange, you got Rick, and I really believe that, Nana. Um, wow, Paul, that is great to hear. Right, that your mom and Lisa are discussing wedding dresses. That's cute. So you can actually see it in your legs already, and you can feel it already. The liquid moving from your legs. Yes, you see, I'm a great believer, Nana, that we get given other benefits. You know what I mean? That for every thing that happens to us that is not so good, that we get other things given in return. And if we can see both sides of it, then we have every reason to be happy. Difference in the nerve damage feeling. In what way, Jody? By the way, I believe that the nerve damage that has been done doesn't get reversed. Is that right in diabetes? So the fact that I've had a numbness in my big toe for a couple of years now, that I'm not likely to get that change. It's not going to get if I behave myself, it's not going to get any worse, but it's not going to. I'm not going to get full feeling back in that toe. Is For those of you who've had diabetes or know about this, is that correct? Whatever nerve damage has been done has been done. Yes, Nana's saying she had a hard life and she has God to thank for making it through. Nana, one of the things I say so often is, be grateful you're a survivor. Because people with less courage and less character, don't make it through. All right, Nerlene, good to see you. I never realized that was you, Manja was you, Nolene. So I feel better now that I can link that. So you're beginning to get some feeling back. Jody, that is so exciting. That is so exciting. I am so happy for you. We can do this. Let's concentrate on what we can do, not on what we can't, right? I do believe that the thing, it's funny when I look at everybody in this room that comes in and chats, you're all survivors of something. And you all fight to be better, to have a better life, to be happier. And, for that makes you a very strong character. It doesn't mean we all have to agree all of the time, but one thing I do know is everybody that is here and at some level has survived something. And as Pat says, that makes you stronger in some way, but also it makes us people who want to continue to learn because we have a lot of learning to catch up with in some ways. And I want to, just finish with and one more quote from Gandhi. And he said, "Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions, and your actions become your habits. Your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. The future depends on what you do today. And I would like to say that your future depends on the choices you make today. Because we can choose to be happy or we can choose to be miserable. And if we keep dwelling on the past, we will be sad. But we cannot change what has happened in our lives. We don't know whether we'll have a future. We can enjoy today if we choose to. So, well done to all of you for surviving this long. It's wonderful to see some old faces in here again. And I send everybody a big, big hug. Thank you for helping each other. And thank you for making it possible for people to see that, we can do this one step at a time. And we can all travel our own path together. This is not a race. This is not about Jody trying to do better than Pat. This is about we are all trying to learn to be happier. And for that, I am very, very grateful to you all because you have done a great job of helping one another. Let us continue to be less, nonviolent in our communication. Let's come more and more from a place of love, not from a place of negativity and hate and revenge and all those things. We don't have time in our lives for that anymore. Let us come from a place of goodness whenever we can, because I do believe that each one of us, that is what is at our core. We are nice people when we remember who we really are, not who we chose to become because people were attacking us so much. What makes you happy? I think we've done that one a number of times, Nana. But if you think it's time to do it again, I certainly consider it. And so everybody, let me find something that addresses that subject. All right, let me just see what Erin says there. So I'm going to be writing you after the broadcast. I feel something going on that I can't put on social media, yet I'm fine, and there's a member of my family who's going through something. Okay, no problem. Erin, you know that we're happy. Isabel, thank you so much for being here. I hope you're enjoying your mug. Everybody, big hugs to you all. Thank you for all that you do to help one another. And know that this is a journey we can continue to hold each other's hands on. This is not a journey you take alone. There are a lot of people in the world trying to travel the same direction. This is DearMamaSal saying, remember to look after one another, but please, 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 remember looking after yourself is so important. And do what you can to take one step at a time to do that a little bit better. Big hugs. We'll see you all soon. This is DearMamaSal saying good night and goodbye for now.